It is my pleasure to introduce Betsy Busche. She's been here all week as my co-chair, but today she's the star of the show. She is the owner of Spongetta's Garden in West Winfield, New York, and she's actually a native of Delaware County. In fact, we met at a conference last year and everyone had to go around the room and say where they were from. And after that talk, Betsy came up and said, I'm from Delaware County. And we hit it off right away. And it turned out she was the perfect person to teach a series we offered last year entitled The Fast Track to Slow Flowers. So a lot of the graduates of that class are in here today. And after the talk, I'll actually tell you about some upcoming classes she's got this year. So she'll tell you a little bit more about her business and about how she makes market bouquets. So it's all you now, Betsy.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As she said, I'm Betsy Busche, and I started a flower farm 5 years ago. I've been growing my whole life. I worked for florists, different things. Always loved flowers, but never quite knew what I was going to do with them. I don't have the presentation coming up on my screen. So I love flowers. I love nature, that kind of idea. And as I'm figuring out 5 years ago, I really wanted to figure out how to grow flowers, make something. And I knew right off that I wanted to do something simple in the sense of I am not really a big wedding person. I appreciate them, but I don't really enjoy the hoopla. I don't really enjoy the fancier flowers. I like kind of the basics. So as I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this, I actually met at a conference 2 super accomplished wedding designers from the area. And they were really gracious and we chatted for a while and they were just so into it. And, they love making brides happy, love doing all of this. And the reality was I kind of walked away from it and said, yeah, I still want to mix bouquets. I wanted something that was every day. I wanted something that could be a part of our lives on a continual basis. And that's why I chose to go this direction. Okay, next. So the cut flower industry, I just want to back up and talk about what we're looking at because people think we're crazy trying to grow and sell flowers because we have such a short season. Americans spend $8 billion a year. Almost all of it comes from other countries. There's a lot in California, and only 20% is considered grown in the US. Even if we break those numbers down, there's still a huge amount of money for the rest of us in these different areas. And most of the imported varieties, for instance, these daisies, which are from the mum family, they're branching. They grow in tunnels along the equator generally, and they're a quick crop. They don't come from seed, they come from cuttings, and they just do them over and over and over again. And that's why the grocery store bouquets are so full of these, because they're so easy to grow. So the other thing that we have to keep in mind is all of the big flower holidays are on the wrong side of our frost dates. So we get frost in October, and then Thanksgiving happens, and then Christmas happens, and then of course Valentine's Day. Easter's a big one for bulbs, so there is a good thing in the US for the bulbs, things like potted lilies, that kind of idea. And then you go into Mother's Day. Well, it's pretty tough for us to have anything going for Mother's Day if we're only field growing. If we're growing inside tunnels, we can certainly force the different bulbs, tulips, and that's what I have is I have tulips and then I supplement it with something else to have Mother's Day available. We have fewer and fewer traditional florists, especially in Delaware County. We were talking about doing an event of inviting florists to birdsong, and there weren't very many. So that's not really the push anymore. And the push is more for the high-end wedding designers and then everyday flowers coming from a grocery store. And we do not have a grocery store in this region that stocks bouquets that are locally grown. Wegmans does in Syracuse, I believe Binghamton also. Price Chopper does a little bit with the Hudson Valley, and that's about it. So we can't walk into the grocery stores and get local bouquets. Next, we'll go next. Okay, so a good cut flower. I always start every talk with this, but I'm going to expand it a little bit. It needs to be a variety that goes straight, long stem so that we can use it. Example, yarrow. Actually, I'm going to back up and say this. I went to the grocery store and bought a whole bunch of flowers. I went to 5 different Price Choppers to get bunches this week, by the way. But I got a nice selection of flowers for us to kind of play with and look at. So we want them with long stems. They need to hold in the vase at least 5 to 7 days. For mixed bouquets, you want a little bit longer because you want a 3-day window to sell them. And then they need to be good in the customer's home for 5 more days. They need to be visually interesting, pretty. They could be seed pods, you know, whatever. They need to be nice. And we need to be able to grow them here. And that's, you know, they need to flourish in upstate New York. So there's a bunch of things like cool flowers that are great in zone 7 that we're not going to get here in zones 4, 5, and 6. So for what we're doing, they also have to have a monetary value. So they need to be something that we can afford to grow, to afford to put into a mixed bouquet, so that when we're selling that bouquet for $12 or $15, we're actually making money. And that's what we'll talk about more. And then it also needs to be flowers that sell. To be perfectly honest with you, I love these yellow yarrow. I can't sell them bouquets. They just don't work. But they're great dried. So they have a different value. And then everything we're talking today is we're just focusing on field grown flowers, and that's going to be June, July, September, August, and September. And we're going to end at October 1st, just for how we're talking. Okay, next. Okay, so what plants to grow? As a beginner flower farmer, I really paid attention to Erin Benzakine from Floret Flowers and this book. And one of the things about Erin is she's not too crazy about the bright colors, and she loves that wedding palette of like salmons and yellows and creams and that sort of thing. So I picked the flowers that she grew, and then I realized they weren't what I wanted because I love those bright, and she calls them garish, and I think that's a good thing. Harmony, I'll tell you about the book. So for weddings, what they need for weddings are focal flowers and greens. They're going in romantic, sweet shades. Actually, we're going to go across the other way. So weddings are focals and greens, mixed bouquets. You're doing more of the discs, the spikes, the fillers. Wholesale, which would be to the florist, that's focals, basics, and they love the foliage. So for instance, Blue Plurum. This one's kind of sad looking, but it's there. Weddings, they want romantic shades. I want super bright colors for my mixed bouquets. And the florist, it depends on what they're doing with them, of what they want and what their taste is. For weddings, you need these flowers on specific dates. You know, like you need it for Saturday. What I need mixed bouquets is I need a consistent supply. I'm picking 2 days a week, and then I need to be able to have them for when I'm making bouquets on Wednesday and I make them on Friday. Wholesale, when you're doing weddings, or I'm sorry, you're doing florists, it's once or twice a week and it's weekly delivery. So you need those fresh flowers for them. As far as like stems, weddings, you can use shorter stems. You can use things that are more open. Actually, I'm going to kind of do the next 3 together because you're going to cut them and you're going to hold them in the cooler. For mixed bouquets, here's the one I bought from the store. This is 20 inches when I bought it. I've since cut it down a little bit. You need 18 inches minimum. You're going to cut those at the earliest stage possible because you want them to last the longest, especially if it takes, for me, it takes a full day to get to the store that I'm selling them at or the market. And then you want to cut them and get them out the door. What's nice is for weddings, you can cut things on Monday and hold them in the cooler all week and then use them. For wholesale, 30 inches is about standard. 24 inches is important. Sometimes they'll take shorter stems though. You have to have a relationship with your florist, as Lisa said yesterday. And you're getting those at the early to mid stage for when they need them to be open. And then a consistent delivery schedule. So it's every Thursday. Okay, next. Okay, so this is Harmony, by the way. This is how we are set up at Market. We have a new banner, but other than that, it's pretty much all the same. Market bouquets are value added. This I bought for $10 at Price Chopper. These are quickly put together. You need a consistent crop plan for what you're putting them in. And then using more common flowers and vibrant colors. So that's really what this one did. Already the Scarborough daisy is getting sad. There's a mum in here, spider mum. So this is worth about $1.50 wholesale. This is $1. You've got these 2 carnations in here. They're about 40 cents each. 2 branches of Ostromeria. I think it's 2. Nope, just 1. That's about 70 cents. The pom-poms, these branchy, wonderful things that take up so much space, those are about 40 cents, 35 to 40 cents each per, here, let me make sure I'll do it this way. So these stems, these are wonderful branching items that they use, that they cut easily in these high tunnels or these greenhouses. These are all super cheap flowers to grow. And you notice they take up a lot of space. And that's pretty important in the idea of a mixed bouquet because you want it to be big and lush, but you can't put a lot of money into it. And I'll explain more of how I do that later. Okay, common flowers, bright colors. Earliest stage lasts longer, as I already said, 3 days and then 5 with a customer. There is a labor cost to this. You're not just cutting flowers, field bunching them, getting them out the store. You are then laying them on the table like I have here, and then you have to go through, pick them up, put them together, and we'll explain that whole process. And they must be packaged for protection and branding. If you put a whole bunch of loose ones that get tangled in the bucket, no one will buy them. I actually tried that once. What I use for, this is kind of a used one, but I take a sheet of butcher paper and I fold it, and in this case it's kind of on triangles. Put it together, put a sticker on it, and this is how I send them out. So it's both protected and it's branded. Okay. The last thing on this, and I think we're going to deal with this right now, mixed bouquets are pretty recession proof, where the 2009 recession was really hard. We lost a lot of our florists, and I think it's tough for florists right now, but these are quick, happy pick-me-ups that are priced at an amount that somebody can buy it as a gift or for themselves. So yeah, supermarket bouquets are pretty recession proof, and we need to figure out how to continue to do that ourselves and have them available. Okay, next. Okay, I'm operating on some assumptions. Like this has turned out to be a huge topic. So I'm just hoping that you understand kind of this basic information of your zone and your frost dates, what life cycles are, blooming activity. Harmony is going to give you links if you need them for some of these things. Succession planting, hydration, and stage of harvest, which is basically when should you pick it. And if you look at the bouquet I have in the picture, that spiky thing going up is gladiola. And I pick those when the first one is emerging, because by the time they get to market, there's usually 2 open, and I don't want to sell it at any more than having 2 open, because they're not going to last the whole week then. If you're selling glads at market, even in buckets, don't sell overblown glads. You're going to ruin your reputation, and you're going to watch farmers do that all the time, and people are going to be so happy to have these big, beautiful flowers, but they only last 3 or 4 days. Okay, and then they complain about it to me. Okay, next. Okay, so I'm gonna mix stuff up here a little bit. We're gonna start first in order. We're looking at 3 different seasons for bouquets, and where June is very specific. If you want flowers in June, for the most part, you need to plant them the fall before. And that includes biennials, perennials, and wintered over hardy annuals. Basically, they do really great. They build everything they need to build as far as roots and all their systems in the fall, and then they go dormant. And then when spring comes, boom, they pop right up and they start blooming pretty quickly for us. So I am still working on conquering June. It's a tough one. I worked really hard on it last year. I'll talk about it more when we look at the different flower lists. As we go into July, all of the things that are hardy annuals that you either direct seed as soon as you can, turn over the soil. So that can be like sweet peas, blue pleurum is one of them. There's a bunch of others. Those are the ones that you're gonna direct seed. You're gonna have them in July. Yeah, we're on that. And then here is what dianthus looks like, and that's another one. So these are things that we're planting early spring so that we have them in July. Everything that is a hardy annual, Kenya was talking about yesterday, will not take the cold. You can't have a cold greenhouse with celosia especially, and a few others of those. Those are the ones that we're getting into for August. They need the heat. So we plant those really June 1st, after Memorial Day, really June 1st when the soil gets to 50 degrees. And those are the next ones. Let's go to the next slide because I'm giving you information I didn't mean to here. Okay, I've shoved these back a little bit. So we're talking about the spring hardy annuals, the ones I said in July. The July stuff, this is based on how you're going to be planting this season. So you've got the stuff that's going to go in when it's still cool. You're using row covers. You're going to succession if you can. One of the great ones that you can do, these are sad grocery store ones, but this is stock. This is one of the coolest things that you can grow for yourself for the end of June into July. Falls under these spring hardy annuals. Tender annuals, the soil temperature, it has to be over 50 degrees for them to be happy. On the other hand, if you're succession planting, you want to transplant in the evening where the soil's at a nice temperature, but they're not getting burned out during the day. We had a horrible year last year for so many reasons. So if something failed, I really encourage you to try it again, because most of those spring hardy annuals flopped on me. I did a last succession of them and I had a whole bunch of them in August, but everything was upside down and snapdragons did not like that heat and they didn't hold up in the vase actually because of that. So that's interesting too. They look cool, but they didn't hold. Tender annuals, you have 2 months that you're picking from them. So we really encourage succession planting 2 or 3 times so that you always have fresh plants, fresh flowers. And yeah, like I said, you're harvesting the same ones August into September. So now I'm looking August 1st, you're putting stuff in the ground. So something like dianthus, if you're wintering it over, and you can, and I really, really strongly encourage you to. I had some incredible, that was the best thing that I grew for June last year, and it held up in the heat amazingly. These need to be started, the seeds need to be started in June. When you're harvesting from this year, you need to be planting for next year. So they need 10 weeks before you put them in the ground in August. And then then you're able to winter them over. Okay, questions or anything? We'll keep going. Get me water. Okay, bouquet recipe. So this is super super important because it keeps things consistent. It's like any kind of recipe, it keeps things consistent. You're not like putting too much in, you're not overstuffing as we call it, you're not using too short of stems, etc. You just know, even though they're going to be different every week, that your bouquets look the same. It also allows for quick assembly because boom, 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 these are your categories, this is what you use. And then you're not competing with your florist prices, that you're not overstuffing so that you're trying to sell these things to a florist as these stems as bunches and in your mixed bouquets. And I actually had kind of a bad experience with that because I had a florist who just wanted to pay nothing for bunches from me. And I finally, just kind of had to shut it down. And she kept saying, well, what do you sell at market? What do you sell to the stores? And I'm like, those are mixed bouquets. Those are lesser flowers. And she's like, oh, and it's tough. It's a tough one. And we'll talk about some of the other farmers that I've been admiring, and that's something they've been working out. Okay, next. Oh, wait.
The questions are going to Carla, so I can't see them.
Oh.
But the one question is, my stock always blooms too short. When should I plant?
Okay, stock loves the cold. Do not be afraid of putting stock out when it's really cold. Frost blankets, row covers over it. You can put stock out early to mid April. Basically, I know people who put it out a little bit sooner. Can you actually go back, Carla, for me? Okay, I missed something on here. Okay, so it'll go down to 10 degrees. It really will, and it's really tough. And that's why they can grow this crazy thing all year round. It holds up. The problem with stock, and I've not had huge tall ones either, is that it just burns out too soon. So we need to get it in the ground a lot sooner and just have really good plants, start really good, strong plants. And, I would say as you're getting to the end of March, that's when you can start hardening them off. And that has worked for me. I have not had crazy great stock. Lisa's a lot better at it. And one of the reasons that she is because she has the greenhouse and she can just grow much stronger plants than I can under lights. And that is a huge difference that you need to be aware of, that if you're doing something like I'm doing or Michael was doing, I have the same setup as him with the 16 trays under lights. And you can grow decent plants, but you're not going to grow great plants that way. And you need to know that. Okay. Next. Okay. So when I first started doing this, hold on one sec. Okay. When I first started doing this, and I was starting to get serious about this, I didn't sign up for any of the classes. What I ended up doing was getting a Growing for Market subscription that allowed me to go into the archives, and then I read every single article I could on bouquet making or anything that referenced selling at market. Like I basically just read every single night for 3 months through the whole thing. And that's how I taught myself how to do a lot of this. And then I've done some other things since then. So these are four who are very generous with their information. All actually have written for Growing for Market. Lynn created it. So I kind of took the information from their farms because I want to see that we have to do it all differently because we have different flowers available. We're in different climates. We're selling to different places, and labor. Labor is a huge issue here. Okay, so the Arnoskis are in Texas. Pamela is the fairy godmother, creator of the walking into a supermarket and just selling bouquets. They sell mostly through Central Markets, which is kind of a high-end grocery store down there. And they did 1,000 for a while, and then they bumped it up to 1,200, and the most they've ever done in a week was 4,000, which is just absolutely insane. It is down to precision of planting. Frank has everything ready to go planted, and she has this whole system that they're making these bouquets in less than a minute. They crop plant. It's consistently crop planting is for this. They do some other stuff on top of it, but the bouquet is the background of what or the base of what they're doing. In one of the articles, Frank was talking about planting 1,200 sunflowers a week. What was the number on that? 3,600 coxcomb, 2,000 zinnia, so they could do 1,200 bouquets a week. And one of the things is they do the plastic sleeves with their name planted on it. Then Lynn Basinski, she wrote basically the Bible for flower farming. And this book is great. If you're serious about this, you should own a copy of it. And also the Arnowskis, it's on the sheet that I sent out. The Arnowskis took all of their articles from Growing for Market, and they have 2 books available of all of that information. One is out of print, so if you can find it anywhere, grab it. They're very entertaining, and they give a lot of information and made me feel comfortable about a lot of things, like really how do you seed start delphinium? Well, they have that figured out. Larkspur, all those hard things to do. So anyhow, so Lynn, for years, she is now retired from her flower farm. She's still doing education. When she does for market, she has in her head how many she's going to do. So she's probably only doing 40 buckets of flowers. I'm probably 45 buckets of flowers, opposed to something else, like those thousands and thousands of them that the Arnowskis are doing. So she surveys her fields. She goes out, she picks what she needs, kind of like Kenyon and Carrie do. Puts something together as a sample, then goes out and picks everything she needs to do those samples. And she does them by each bucket that she does is different. And I want to back up, the Arnowskis pretty much do those 1,200 pretty much exactly the same, because that's the easiest way to do it. The colors are different because they do for their zinnias are all different colors, so they come out different, but that recipe of always having the zinnia, the celosia, blah, 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 are all exactly the same. That makes sense. Okay, so I just want to say that she goes out and then she picks what she needs, comes back, makes them, and then puts them in buckets, color blocked. Steve and Gretel Adams are in their Columbus, Ohio, and Sunny Meadow Flower Farm. They're fantastic to follow. I included in that just a great podcast I did with Michael Kilpatrick, I think. And the Profitable Market Farm, I can't remember, sorry. Anyhow, that's worth your 2 hours to listen to. They pick everything. They take out all of their florist stuff first and their event stuff out, and then whatever is left goes into the mixed bouquets. They have a formula, and they do a tripod style, and they do not do any filler. They're all flowers, and it's usually 15 stems. It started at $15. They bumped it up to $20 because they did not want to be competing with their flower sales. And they also use a plastic sleeve that is branded because it's faster. Okay, and then the last is Erin Benzakine. We don't have access to the video right now, but she has a blog post about this explaining how she does it. And then she created a wonderful video showing you how to actually do bouquets. And that is available. She usually makes it available every summer as part of a mini course. You know, follow what she's doing, and then when it's open, just jump on it. Because for me, it was like, it just clicked. I don't do it exactly how she does. I do more fillers because of her, but just that whole idea of laying everything else out and doing it made it so much quicker, and it made sense. Like I could actually make money doing this. Okay, next. So I talked about everybody else. Now I'm going to talk about me. So I sell at one farmer's market. I have about 20 CSA a week. I sell in 3 stores, and then I do events. I have regular customers who do, we call it fill a vase, and they bring a vase to me and tell me when they need it, and I do an arrangement for them and send it off for them. So I end up not having to pay the base price for it, that sort of thing, or the cleaning. So I can do it for $35 to $50, depending on what they're asking for. So I always do kind of like the Adams take out the florist stuff first. I do my CSA bouquets first. They are a minimum of worth of $20, and sometimes and more often it's more than that, because they are the ones who are rewarded for trusting me, giving me money early. The best part of a CSA is that you have this operating income in the spring when you really need it, so that I can get more, you know, actually more glads this year. I'm all about the glads now. I didn't like them before, by the way. And so yes, so those are first. And then I do the $20 Spongetta bouquets. And then my, the one that I'm making the most money off of and selling the most are the everyday bouquets. They are $12, 12 to 15 stems, and no focal flower. When I first started out, I'll back up on this. I spent a summer 6 years ago helping out Carrie and Kenyon and working at their stand, and I was picking flowers and making bouquets, and that was one of the things that just kind of clicked for me. So if you've been in another class and I've told you that story, that's what I was talking about. And so they, at the time, were doing 12 for $5. So I was trying to do 12 for $5, and I had the short stems because I didn't understand pinching. I couldn't understand how people are getting these other stems. And I didn't really sell much. And then I had these people who would like swoop into the farmer's market. I was selling through my mother-in-law and buy them at the end for half price, which like totally freaked me out. And I wasn't making any money. I wasn't even making enough money to drive out there each Saturday, much less growing, much less any of it. So I bumped up my price to 10 when I started adding fillers, and then I went to 12 because I realized I wasn't charging tax on top of it, and I was actually losing too much. So 12 is a nice number for us for that size. 20 is a good number for the bigger one. And then this happened by accident, but I had all of these super short stems one week. There was no way that I had enough to send to my store in New Hartford. And, but I had these little stems. So I made up smaller ones, like mini versions of the everyday that were about a foot tall, and they sold out. And those, then we started bringing them to the market. Everybody loves those. And then also at the end of bouquet making, I gather together whatever is left and I put it into 4 to 6 stems, band it up, put a little doily around it, and sell those as posies. There was a week this summer that I just like, I don't know, blanked out and didn't make any posies. We had a problem. We had some people who buy posies every week. They were looking for their posies. So I had to take apart other ones and make them posies. And that worked and that was fine. But there's an idea of what I do. And then anything that's remaining still gets sent out the door. I clear my field as much as I can when I'm picking before the session. Everything rests. And then the whole goal is there's nothing left in the buckets when I'm done. So I will do bunches, and we'll talk about those at the end. Or sometimes I do make your own at market, and I hate it the same way Kenyon hates it because people just kill the flowers. I find it stressful. I don't think it's fun. But I do it because it's added income and it gets rid of stems. Okay, next. Okay.
You're a little behind.
Am I? Okay, so I'm not going to get into much on how to make a market bouquet, but these are the steps that everybody, the women I talked about, and then me, is, you know, quality control happens in the field. You only pick the good stuff. You strip in the field, hydrate in the buckets for at least 2 hours. I like overnight when I can. Lay out flowers. I have them right now laid out by category. And then you gather them up, band package, get them in fresh water. And basically all of the stuff that's on the handout that you'll have access to, or all these articles so you can read about how to do it. I'm going to just quickly show you how I do it. I do it different than others. I start with my center, and I guess that's what Erin Benzakein does too, but I usually do a flower in the center. I do not do focal flowers unless it's the CSA bouquets. So there we go. So when we're doing it, we're not paying attention to it. We're kind of twisting and rolling. So here we go. We have 3 really nice things of dianthus. Then we're putting in, then I put in 3 stock. So we have some spikiness, we have scent. This is not going as smoothly as I would normally do it because I'm trying to do both, but you get the idea. Okay, so I put in some discs. That's what the yarrow would be considered. I also found liatris, so we would use those as spiky things. And then when we're talking about what to put around it in the cuff, I have the bupleurum. That would work. And then look at what that does. That just adds a whole crazy dimension of things that are sticking up. So you have the iris, and then I'm sorry, I keep calling the lily the iris. I apologize. Another one that I love is a perennial in July, and that is the sea holly. These are sad, but look how well that cuffs around. Okay, so that's basically what a bouquet would look like. Not quite as, it's a little shambled, but you get the idea. Okay, next, because I really want to talk about what we're putting in them, not how we're doing them. Okay, so we're going to do this based on kind of where I was shifting the others. If you're a beginner, start with tender annuals. Start with the things that you can grow, either direct seed or start to put in the ground June 1st, Memorial Day, that area. What I have done here is I actually went through my Instagram, and these are the crops that I had for certain weeks in August of this year. So if you're looking at it, what I was talking about was building that center. You can do it with 1 or 2, anything that's branchy or full. So the Triloba rudbeckia, which is the branchy brown-eyed Susan, you know, phlox are great, all of those. And then we're talking about the cuffs, and that's what I meant by the bupleurum, spikes, the liatris. I actually had larkspur this late last year, and then disc could be the zinnias, the yarrows, the ageratum, and then focals. So I kind of put focals last because I don't always use them, and you don't always need them. You know, somebody asked me when I started my eucalyptus, I don't grow eucalyptus. I buy a few plants, but I don't use them in these because they're too expensive. So if you go across, you can kind of see from those 4 weeks, those are the things. And basically, I just kind of picked 1 or 2, but we're using the same things over and over again. And, you know, sometimes I use my sunflowers, especially the late season ones are pretty small, and I get the upward facing ones. I use 3 of those as a disc, not as a focal flower, depending on the size and what I have. I'm not going to go through all of these. We certainly can ask questions about them, but if you go to the next slide, which is the rest of the season. Oh, can we go back? We're missing one. I skipped one. No September?
It goes, oh, is September missing there? Oh, there it is.
Okay, good. Just need a quick thing on September. So it's the same things. We're just doing them over and over and over again. And what's nice with celosias is they don't all bloom at once. Flamingo feather and ruby parfait come early, and then you get the other ones. So High Z is one of my favorites. I absolutely love the Selway ones. The terracotta is just gorgeous. You know, those are the things that we just keep doing over and over again. The reason I did September separately on this, and so you can kind of see what the different things are ready when, is that many of those hardy annuals will finish blooming in July. And then if you cut them down and cut them back, you'll get a second flush from them. And that includes Lisianthus, Rudbeckia, Feverfew, I don't know what else, Delphinium. I don't know what else is on here, but you get this amazing thing for the last 2 weeks in September. You have all these flowers to work with again, that's different. And I have to confess, right around September 7th or so, I am so bored with my own fields that I will go and cut at Kenyon and Carrie's place a few buckets just so I have something else to work with. And often it's still zinnias, but it's different colors than I had planted. Okay, questions on these? We're going to keep going to July then. So August and September are pretty easy. Those are those basic ones that you're going to plant over and over and over again. There's on the handout, I gave you kind of a general list of ones that you can plant at those times. And we can dig in a little bit deeper on those. So for July, these are the same things that we have the direct sown things that get in the ground, like the baby's breath, the saponaria, trying to see some of the others. Larkspur is a direct seed. Dock is a weed and we love it. I do go and Joe Pieweed, I think, was on that list. That's the lavender stuff that's on the side of the roads in August. That's a great one. You needs a little help hydrating, but it'll be great for you. So this is kind of an idea. I did this one based on 2019 because this year none of our hardy annuals were ready in July. They had either frozen or burned out or whatever. I was scrambling a lot in July. So this is, we're looking at the year before it was a little more friendly to us. So kind of an idea of the different things in the different areas. Michael had mentioned, and I'm going to reiterate, trying to grow lilies in the field is just a nightmare. They are fantastic for this use. They're perfect for a flower in the center. You actually harvest them when they all look bloated, just a bloated bud like this, just before it's opening, because otherwise it's going to get damaged, which is why they never look good in the grocery store. These are wonderful, but those red beetles just decimate them, and it's impossible to kind of get them through. We did a little bit better this year with row covers. Okay, and then this is like when Lisianthus is ready, and then you cut it all back, and then you'll get more in the spring, kind of thing. Same thing with the Rudbeckia. You have a lot of choices right now. I would say mid-July on to mid-August, that's when you have the most flowers. That's when you can do the neatest things. That's when you should take on events. Okay, and then let's look at June. Okay, so June is a tough one, and I kind of combined the 2 years because, again, we had crazy weather, so everything was too hot, and like my Iceland poppies just burned out. My ranunculus didn't do a thing this year. So early June, you've got some fun stuff, and you have to get creative. So in the field is this gorgeous wild scabiosa up on the hill. I go crazy doing that. And when they mow the field, they leave me some. It's great. They're doing it for hay. They leave me a little bit of it. I am fortunate. I have a neighbor who has a bank of Solomon seal that they let me cut from, and I just cuff straight through June with that. Lupin, as long as you can get them hydrated, they're great. Columbine is the reason that I still try to do something in this part of June because it's so gorgeous. It's so wonderful. And if you do the different kinds, you can stagger the plantings for 3 weeks. And then I love the purple sensation allium. Pops up, it's great. It holds in the cooler. You can use it for about 4 weeks if you have enough. And then peonies come on. So my only reason for doing CSAs in the past in June was the peony, and then I realized I just didn't have enough to work with them. Something I am a strong proponent of, if you have something that you can harvest and forage, kind of like the Solomon seal. The other one for me is our hay barn is just covered in grapevines, and my father-in-law would love it if I just got them all down. So I use grapevines like crazy this time of year too, even as they start to add fruit. It's just beautiful. They're cool. Also some of the bulbs, you've got, foxglove, the dianthus, all that stuff popping up. Iceland poppies are worth figuring out if you're interested in them. Dutch iris are the only iris you can really cut well, certainly at this price point, and I really recommend doing those. Okay, the other thing I want to say is in one of these pictures, I almost feel like we skipped a slide, but in one of these pictures that has feverfew and stock in it, actually go to the next one. I think that's where I put it. Yeah, there it is. This is what I'm talking about. So my stock did not do it. This is from last year. My stock didn't do anything. Feverfew, woohoo, happy. The yellow yarrow was great. We have the pennycress, that's all good. So I ended up calling Lisa and I buy her single stock to put into bouquets. And I also, she had it, so I bought some of the doubles. And I have to tell you, this stuff is so strong that putting 3 into a bouquet was way, way, way too much. So, okay, so we need to figure out how much we need, what we need to grow. So this is based, I can't see the date, but it's based on that date. So we're just gonna do the math this way. We're gonna put 3 stems of everything. Or well, we'll see. Yeah, 3 stems times 10 bouquets, that would be 30. But what the number really is how much yield are you going to have that exact day you need it to cut? Sunflowers are really, really cute. They're like toddlers. They're cute, but they never do what you want them to do when you need them to do it. If you need them for Saturday for market, they're going to start blooming Sunday night and be perfect on Monday. They just do that. So that idea of we need to have something that we can cut twice a week, have it ready when we make bouquets twice a week. So for this, I'm going with that lower one. And so we have 6 feverfew, we have 3 stock in there, 3 pennycress, 1 foxglove, 3 yellow yarrow. So what we must pick are, and this is like my 4th grade word things, the word puzzles that we had to do for math problems. Okay, you must pick 60 stock feverfew, 30 stock, 30 pennycress, 10, and 30. So then we have to figure out what are they actually going to produce, and not what we think they should produce, but what they're actually going to produce when we need them. So I get about 4 stems off each pinched feverfew, so I need about 25 plants. Single stem stock, I definitely need 30, so I'm going to aim for 40. Single branching stem pennycress, that pops up and does what it wants to do, so you're hoping that you have 30 of them. And then the foxglove, we need 10, we're just going to stick 1 in. And then the yarrow pretty much ends up growing in a giant clump, so it's not the number of plants you have, it's how much you're going to get out of that clump. And of course we need, and it's about, I'm guessing 40 to 50 stems based on what I've cut in the past, and that's what we end up with. Okay, next. What?
10 minutes, 5 slides.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay, cool. So how to plant, basically spacing for, you're growing flowers intensively. Spacing is 9 inches for cuts. Something like marigolds need 18, zinnias need 12. That's for airflow. Anything that's single stem, you can do at 6, and I am now doing glads at 4, and they hold each other up, and it's worth it. You really need to keep records, and I forgot the book. Book on crop planning, if it's right there. If not, well, I'll grab it at the end. So you need to keep records of what you're doing. I am really bad about that I'm really bad about that in the like heat of the season. It's lucky that I keep track of my CSA people. And when we're trying to plant and harvest and sell and, you know, do classes and do all of this at the same time, for me, that's the thing that gets set aside. So I'm not really keeping good records of what my yields actually are. I just got this. The Gretel and Steve Adams really recommend this. It came from Growing for Markets, and I'm also following him and taking some stuff online. And it's all about the like recording and figuring out what you need and how to keep spreadsheets and you know, how to analyze that, keep and analyze that data. So I highly recommend this. I am going to do this year, I promise. Okay, so I plant by 10 feet, which is about 30 plants. With the way we do it, we have a gravely with a mulch layer and we do plastic mulch at this point. So I end up having 24-inch beds, not ideal, but it works. So I do double usually, sometimes triple, whatever. So I am doing it by 10-foot beds and figuring out how many go in there. So for me at that stage, I get about 30 plants per 10 feet. And that's how I plan how much I need is based on 30s. Okay. Yes. Harmony's putting up the information on the book for you. Okay, so I calculate by field length. I have 100 foot, I have 70 foot, and I have 40 feet beds. So I kind of calculate from there and how I'm doing it. How I determine what goes where is location determines it. Location is determined by pest pressure, and that is deer. If I one of the reasons we do the gravely and not a bigger tractor or rototiller, that kind of thing, is we have to fence. So we have these plots that are fenced in, so we need to be able to manage those that way. So we couldn't cultivate or whatever with a tractor. So pest pressures first, is it going to be in a fence? And then what support does it need? Usually netting. So I like to put all the netting stuff together. It's just a lot easier. And then I place it by maturity of, I try to finish things all off together. So like I have all of these things that I planted in the fall, but then I have carnations at the end. And I did this once. I wanted to turn that whole thing over, but the carnations were still producing. So that didn't really work out so great. Okay, and then I do spring, summer, fall gardens because I'm driving around. The gardens are not on my own property. Okay, next. Okay, just wanted to say color, as you're figuring this out, design is important. It's very important. People are going to buy what they like. Color is personal, color is seasonal. That picture were 3 of the prettiest bouquets we have ever made that we had for sale at the end of August, and nobody would, or the end of September, and nobody would buy them because they look like spring. So I brought them home, put them in a picture, and gave them to a friend, and she was happy. But that was really like a lesson for us of, we think these are bright, happy, fresh, and they're like, no, we want orange. Red and yellow do not sell. I just don't go there anymore. I color block for impact, where I will layer several colors together and then add in contrasting. And then you really learn a lot by watching your customers react. You figure out what they like, what works. And sometimes it's surprising because at the end I will start throwing things together into bouquets, and there won't even be any discs in there, and people will buy those. They love them. They look fresh. So, okay, next. Okay, and then the other thing is scent is really important too. The first thing that people do is walk up and stuff their nose in my bouquets. So there's an expectation of it, but you only need 1 or 2 stems. Right now, I'm actually dying between the lily and all the stock in my house. It's pretty stinky.
No dahlias, question mark.
We'll get back to the dahlias. And then, you know, like things that are good for it are stock carnations, tuberose, mignonette, sweet anise are perfect for it. Next. Okay, and then I wanted to say flowers to avoid in mixed bouquets. This was supposed to be 1 or 2 things, but I think this slide is really important. Things that don't grow well. things that are high cost per. Okay, somebody, questions are coming up. Give me a second. Let me get through this slide and we'll get to them, okay? Cost per stem. So I do not put peonies, eucalyptus, or dahlias into my $12 mixed bouquets. You can, if you do that, they're worth $3 or $4 and you're not going to make any money. The only time that I use dahlias, and they were in the plan for definitely for September, I only use those for CSAs. I actually don't even do $20 ones with those. I don't grow a lot of dahlias. I do, I don't know, 20 plants a year, but they're not one that I make a lot of money off of at the price point that I do. Okay, so not prolific. Carnations, Crispidia, you don't get enough off the plants. They're not worth it for this. Disease and pest pressure. And we're only talking about mixed bouquets here. We're not talking about weddings. We're not talking about florists. Height, Dusty Miller, can't get height on it. Ranunculus, it's been tough. Iceland poppies really need, if you want the height for them, really need to be done in a tunnel. Wrong shape, cascading, amaranth, coxcomb, hydrangea, they're just too funky to use in this situation. Something that shatters, Kenny was talking about Moulin Rouge, sunflowers, we all love them, but they shatter. You can't put them in mixed bouquets. And you have to keep in mind, people are carrying these suckers home. They're getting beat up a little bit. They need to be stronger than something delicate. Anything that has a hydration issue, like Indian Summer or Woodies, it's just not worth it. Somebody's carrying home something with a woody in it, gets dried out, put it in water. It just, that's not something that should be in a mixed bouquet. They're great in arrangements. And then things that are dangerous, like monk's hood, snow on the mountain, something that's going to burn somebody's skin. Okay, next. I think, okay, straight bunches. We'll just get through this and we'll get to questions. So things that make great straight bunches are those focal flowers, are the sunflower, zinnia, lisianthus, anything with a short season. That's a specialty. Columbine sell like crazy as bunches. Daffodil, tulips, of course, sweet peas, nigella are great. And then anything that's daisy-like. Things that you can dry. But if I have leftover feverfew, Harmony can tell you we take it to market every June and we never sell it. It looks pretty, but it doesn't sell. So it's got to be things that are funkier. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. We're moving on to questions.
Yeah, how do we want to do the questions? Are they coming out so Harmony can do them, or do you have them, Carla?
I have a couple here. Okay, so the first one was no dahlias question mark. You said you
I explained that.
Okay.
Okay, I explained that the question was no dahlias. Dahlias only go into the higher end stuff. I don't put them in everyday bouquets.
Do you use pre-cut plastic mulch?
I do not use pre-cut, and I definitely it wouldn't work for what I'm doing, to be perfectly honest. I need that control of being able to put things where I want to.
And then
We have a quick way of planting, so we stick with it.
which annuals will self-sow a lot and could become invasive?
Self-sowing annuals. Okay, Chinese forget-me-not, Orlea, Cosmos. There's a bunch others. Those are probably the craziest of them. And I do have Chinese forget-me-nots popping up all over, and I don't care because I love them. Yeah, there's black-eyed Susans, Triloba. Like, you actually want that one. That's the brown-eyed Susan, the branchy one. You want that to self-seed. And I didn't replant some because I had them coming back up.
That was all of the questions.
Okay, Carla, you have questions?
No, I was just going to comment. We've had celosia self-sow like crazy,
Okay.
and amaranth.
Oh, that does it. I cut every stem. Here's the thing on the self-sowing stuff, and of course the biennials will. The reality is what you're supposed to be doing is cutting everything. So like I don't get a lot of Cosmos self-sowing because I'm just cutting it.
Okay, and I see a few more questions coming through. One is, what is your fertilizer schedule? And then you go ahead and cover that one.
Fertilizer, okay. We broadcast the same as Kenyon. I have had a horrible time getting compost that hasn't been scary. But we do beef manure and sheep manure because we have it. And so we do that, mix that into the beds. We also have terrible clay soil out at the farm, and we're constantly putting sand in there. But basically we do a broadcast fertilizer, and then I fertilize when I plant, and then usually just before blooming, I will do a liquid fertilizer.
And then this one says, sounds silly, but do you have a quick method to put on elastic? Do you use a guillotine?
I don't have a guillotine, and every single year I say I'm going to buy one. So this will be the year. I don't know. You just honestly, actually, I do have a quick. I use smaller rubber bands, and for my main rubber band, I use 2 of them. And instead of doing it a gazillion times like everybody does, let me see if I can. I just do 2 of them, and I do it twice or 3 times, and that's it. One of the things that is really important, and every beginner tries to make their bouquets too tight. In that sleeve, you need to have that full and open. If you are rubber banding 6 inches up super tight, you're making your flowers too tight, and people are not going to read that as a big full bouquet. So you need to do it like the last inch at the bottom, and then just kind of spread things out in the sleeve. Does that make sense?
And then we also have questions about your irrigation techniques. What do you use at your sites?
We hope it rains. Okay, we do not have any irrigation. We have no ability to have irrigation out at the farm. So we put in things that can handle it. For the most part, the things that are more drought loving in that location. The one up on the hill from here, the problem is we are on village water and it's crazy expensive. So that's kind of an issue. So Rob has taken I think it's a 150-gallon tank. It's on a trailer. He goes and fills it up, and then we bring it up and just by gravity. And then we've been hand watering. Every year we say we're going to do drip irrigation, and then we leave it for the last minute, and then we chicken out. We are going to do that this year. So we're actually doing hand watering, and that's why you hire high school students.
And this has been so much fun. I want to thank Betsy for not only for speaking today, but for being the co-chair of the session. She's the one with all the great connections who got the folks here to give us such a diversity of information this week. Okay, well, with that, I'm wishing everybody a wonderful weekend and happy growing. Here's to a lot of beautiful flowers this summer.
Great, thank you.